Live
But
without the music and tacky jokes.
we can try.
We'll try. We'll try. We'll try to make it a little bit funny. I guess I should mute my phone. Tonight, I'm excited. We started last week talking about love languages, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper, and we're going to have part 2 and talk about love languages. Tonight, we're going to be talking about touch and acts of service. I thought I turned it off. Maybe I turned it on. So before we start with that,
Yeah.
there's a couple things that I want to make some announcements, right?
Yeah.
I wore my key
Yay.
because the sign up for the 63-day challenge is underway. The 63-day challenge starts February 17th or 16th, February 16th. Let me pull up this calendar. Let me pull up my calendar. Let's see. February 16th. It's on a Friday. A couple people have said to me, "Oh, I thought I was already registered." You are not. Unless you went. It's funny. We used to do it a different way. And if you signed up for the women's boot camp, then you're registered. But there's a lot of people that don't go to the boot camp that still wanted to do the challenge. So we are doing that differently. So if you think you are signed up and you have not signed yourself up on a form on the internet, you are not signed up. So make sure that you do that. You can see us, I think on our Facebook page, I have a post of all the events that we're having and links to them.
Yes.
So make sure you sign up for the 63-day challenge. What it is it's an email challenge, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
For 63 days at 6 o'clock in the morning, you will get sliding into your email box. You will get a video that we have carefully selected to encourage you, to build you up spiritually. So it's so awesome, isn't it? Each year.
Yes, and you get your spiritual food every morning, and it's
Yum, yum, yum,
amazing
yum, yum.
how it pushes you and how it keeps you connected. It keeps you in the flow. It keeps you focused on your mission, your purpose, everything you're working on, and it's an awesome build up to the women's boot camp if you are going to that.
And really, just the reason why we ended up separating it is because there were men that wanted to sign up. There were several, like if they can't go to the boot camp, wanted to sign up. And what we began to see is with the email challenges, man, it just keeps people pepped up and motivated. And if you're in a down season in your life, if you're looking for direction, just there's something about turning over those 63 days of your life and just flooding yourself with spiritual food that just gives you a clarity that you can't get other ways.
I totally agree.
Yes. So we have that. We have the men's boot camp
Yeah.
coming up. Next week, I will be at the men's boot camp, and I'm pretty excited about that. And I keep teasing the ladies. Ladies, the men blew you out of the water last year. The men did really, really amazing. Sonia's like, what? So us as women have to really
Step it up.
step it up this year, because the men were just great. They opened up. They put their walls down, and it's just amazing. If you haven't signed up and you want to sign up, men, go ahead. I promise you, it is a weekend you will never forget. It will forever impact your life. Man, it was great, and there was just so much transformation made that. Man, it's just, when I think
know.
about it now, it just
Wish
blows
I could
my
have
mind.
been in on that men's boot camp just to see what you're talking about. That would have been awesome.
It was really amazing.
Yeah,
It
well,
really
because the
did.
women's are always fantastic.
That's
So
what I'm
if the
saying.
men blew us out of the water,
That's what I'm saying.
I need to know what's
need-
going on.
You need
We
to know what
We need to
happened.
step it up. Come on, Sonia. We'll step it up. They're awesome though, and
They really are.
the challenge leading up to it really, it gets you in a place spiritually, I think, that just prepares you.
You're ripe for the picking.
Yeah, we have a sign that says, and I'm going to get this wrong. You'll probably know what I'm talking about. And it says, luck is what happens when preparation and opportunity meet.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what the challenge does for you. It almost,
It does.
it puts you in a position so you can be there to meet the opportunity for a spiritual breakthrough when you come.
Absolutely. And so, sign up for the challenge. If you're a man, just go sign up for that spiritual boot camp. And this Saturday, we have our February online workshop.
Yes.
And I'm so excited because my pastor, Pastor Earl Gardner, will be our guest speaker. And you don't want to miss that. Every time he comes, it's funny because we're doing the workshops online now. So they're awesome. And Pastor Earl always brings a great revelation and breakthrough every time he comes. So I'm super pumped about that. It will be online. It's Zoom. There's a link. I think I posted the events for the week. So if you scroll through our Facebook feed or if you go to our website, it'll give you a link to the Zoom. Just come. What we usually do is we'll do about 45 minutes, an hour education, and then we're going to take a small break and then come back on Zoom and do some process time. Mm-hmm. I'm just a huge advocate of getting the information and applying it to your life. Why gather information if you're not going to do anything with it?
Right. It's
You're
just
like-
going to fall flat.
Bump on a log. Get it together, people.
No, we're not those people. We're not those people.
No, you're better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Do more.
That's right.
But it is. I love learning revelation and just receiving it and just rhema word, and then being able to put it into action in your life and just watch miracles begin to happen.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's always powerful. So I'm excited to see what's in store for this weekend.
It really is. People ask me a lot of times, will they be recorded? I'm very particular about privacy. What we will be doing is recording the education part of it, but the process time afterwards is a magical time.
Yeah.
And we will not record that. We probably will record it, but we will not make it available for the public. But the education will be, but I'll say there's something special when you attend in person online or in person, that there's an anointing there that it's not that it doesn't transfer to recordings, but there's a special anointing for the people who take the time out of your day. There's just something about marking that time and saying, you know what? I'm going after spiritual growth. I'm going after spiritual healing. So I'm going to attend that. And I promise you, you'll run into so many obstacles that day, that morning. It's like, I hear it all the time. People are like, oh my gosh, this happened and this happened and this happened. I don't know. And it's funny because with our ministry, with what we do here, there is the enemy who don't want you to get free. He doesn't want you to get free. But God will make a way, and you make it a priority. And I promise, man, the freedom that will come to your life. It's not us. It's not Pastor Earl. It's you dedicating that time and you just crying out to the Lord saying, Lord, there's an answer that I need, or there's a question that I have and I'm longing to hear on it. I just want to grow. I want to break this level that I'm going through right now. So
Absolutely.
I believe all of our events really that's what we try to do. And that's what we focus on. And there's so much prayer and so much just everything that goes into, because we believe in healing here and we go after it. And so I just love it.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to think, do we have another event?
That's all of
I don't have
you talked about this Saturday. We have next Wednesday. We'll be live again.
Okay. Every
That's-
Wednesday now we are live.
At 7:00. That'll be our next, after the workshop on Saturday. Our next event will be next Wednesday when we'll be live again. And it's going to be Valentine's Day.
It will be Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I love that. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about love language was because it's the month of love.
That's right.
Yeah. And we actually probably we'll have the one that we had last week. We'll have this one. We have next week, which is Valentine's Day. And then we'll maybe have one more after that for the love language series.
Oh, yeah.
Which brings us directly into talking about love languages. Love languages are so important. If you can kind of think about it, and just to back up, it won't fix everything in your life. It won't. If you're in crisis, it's not going to fix your crisis. But what it does is, if you're aware of love languages, it begins to open up the relationships in your life. Think about it. If you speak Chinese and I don't know how to speak Chinese, like we could smile at each other, we could have a little bit of a relationship, but it would be very difficult. And so being aware, for one, of what like my love language is, and then what other people's love language is, it just deepens the connection, deepens the relationship, and it just opens the doors to our heart when somebody is able to love us in our language. It makes us feel cared for. It makes us feel seen. It makes us feel heard. Most of the times when people come in for counseling, one of the first things we do is we try to figure out what each other's love language is so we can get something good rolling. Let's stop the snowball and get it rolling in a different direction if there's a lot of strife and tension and things like that, because those we laugh about it, but like random acts of kindness, stuff like that, like it's meaningful. How do you feel when you go to Chick-fil-A or wherever and you pull up to the window and somebody's paid for your meal?
Oh yeah, it's so awesome. I had that not too long ago somewhere.
Oh my gosh,
it was so sweet.
Love that. I love that. I cut somebody off the other day, not intentionally. I didn't see them coming, and I didn't see them on the side, and I think they had been waiting, and I went before them, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, how do you say that in the drive-thru? You pay for their...
Aw,
You
that's
pay for-
awesome.
yeah.
What a great idea.
And so we're not talking about gifts today, but the gift of that, I mean, that's
Yes.
that's a way of, especially if gifts are your language. And spoiler alert, every single one of the love language gifts, love languages, you have a bucket full of that. So we're talking about touch and acts of service today, but there's touch, acts of service, gifts, quality time, and words of affirmation. You have all of those buckets. We talked last week about each bucket. If you can picture it, each bucket, you need a different level in it. And I think next week, I almost got out a physical example, and I'll do that next week so that you can see you have an amount that you need to feel nourished. And then you have amount that's just like, this is I can make do. You're just maintaining. You're just treading water. And then there's an amount that it can get to. It can be so low that it's critical. It's like, you hear all those alert, alert. And you don't ever, it's bad enough when it gets to just sustaining. We want, just treading water. So if you know when your love languages are, you're able to help ask for your needs and help meet your needs. And then if you educate people around you, and if people around you are also looking, it really, really is very, very awesome. So we are going to talk today about touch, the love language of touch. And I think last week we made a video, we made a TikTok, and we were talking about like you being single.
Yes.
That
I'm single. I'm available.
we need to like a little card that we can pop up that'll be like, and there's our number, like a little blink around you. But we talked about this being like, how do you get your needs met? It's a difference when you're in an ongoing relationship, and then if you're single. And one of the things we really talked about is this main one is touch. So we're gonna address that a little bit later. But I wanted to bring that up. When you think about touch, understand that love languages, we feel the most love through our primary language. But also understand that each language, when you do your quiz, and if you can pop that, the link to the quiz down somewhere in the comments so that people can get it. Hopefully everybody has taken their quiz, right? And the order of what your love language is. Because everything filters through your primary. Like you'll usually have 1, 2, 3 that are pretty close together and the others are a little bit less. But all of your love languages are important, and it is important to know the order and what kind of clusters together. So if your primary language is physical touch, the way that you predominantly receive love is through physical touch. So just understand that everybody has a need for touch, but somebody's whose physical touch, that is their primary. If that's their primary language, that becomes even more magnified. Want to clarify also, I'm just going to read off a couple notes that I have for this, that I wanted to have a little bit of a deeper discussion than we were able to have when we're going through all of them. Understand that there's sexual touch and non-sexual touch. I think a lot of times people look at this as, oh, they like sex, and it's just about, they think about it in context of sexual touch, but actually that is not the case at all. Not that, I mean, everybody loves sex, probably. Okay. Like, we won't, this is P or G rated, and we won't get too much into that, but there's that sexual touch that we love, that type of intimacy. But there is also, when we talk about physical touch, it's primarily talking about non-sexual touch. And I think it's very important to distinguish. When you think of physical touch, what kind of I think it's easy for us to think of a lot of romantic or sexual ways, but just what if you're single? What if it's platonic? And like I said, even if you're married, even if you're dating somebody, the vast majority of the physical touch is non-sexual physical touch, because what you're saying to the person is, I see you, I recognize you, and things like that.
Yes. So
when you think of physical touch, before we really started talking about it, what was your thinking on it?
You mean from like a single perspective, or
No,
just in general?
A person perspective.
Oh, physical touch. I mean, I think of like a hug, or I think of like even like a pat on the shoulder, or I do hair, and I have clients who I can tell if they're like, one of their primary love languages is physical touch. Especially
if you're washing their hair. In fact, I have that on there later. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Getting your hair shampooed, having your hair done, massages, getting a pedicure. They usually massage your feet. Like, I
don't want to get too far ahead of us, because we have a whole slide on that.
Okay.
But when you think of physical touch, do you think of it more primarily sexual or non-sexual?
Oh, non-sexual.
Okay.
I think of affection.
Good. Because that is so important. And a lot of people, when they come to this language, what do? They think of sex. And so I'm glad that, especially being single.
I think you can, I believe you can have sex and not feel your physical touch bucket got filled.
Exactly. And so I want you to think of it in context with that, because if you just think of it as sex and your partner is physical touch and you just think of it exclusively of sex, they're not going to be satisfied. They're not going to be happy. So let's talk about a little bit of things with that. This is interesting. Research, and this is not even about a physical touch person. This is just everyday people. Everyday people. Research has shown that it takes 8 to 10 meaningful touches a day to maintain physical and emotional health.
Wow.
Imagine now your primary love language is physical touch. Imagine that 8 to 10 is probably going to triple, at least, at a minimum.
Wow.
Does that blow you mind?
Wow.
I was surprised. I knew that it would be high, but when you begin to think about it in context of, this is just everybody. You need 8 to 10 a day. You divide up into hours that you're awake, and like, let's say you stay home for the day.
I'm like, my physical touch bucket is
starving.
Very empty. It's dry. If I need it.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did say meaningful. Sorry, I'm trying.
That's crazy to think about.
It is. And that's why I say, just is as a body of Christ, as a church, like, we crave our body to be around us and to be in meaningful contact. And I think that we just don't understand that enough.
Yeah. I think about a mom who, like, a woman hers is physical touch, but her kid, when you have kids, you get like touched out as mom.
1,000 physical touches.
She's like, nobody touched me.
I'm touched out.
It's not the same. I mean, I think it can be in some ways, but
Well, it is, and that is a good point. You raise a very good point. Like, let's say your spouse is physical touch, and you're a stay-at-home mom, and you stayed home with the kids all day, and you've been touched and touched and touched and touched again. And there's nothing on your body that hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
And just multiple times. Kids use you as a jungle gym and everything. And married people's sex lives, really, especially early on, can very much suffer because of that. So
Yeah.
I would say physical touch is, I think, like a weird one, in the way that if I, like, say if your love language is words of affirmation, it's, you might not be, that might not be your natural language, but in that you can be like, I can make myself give a compliment.
yes.
But when it comes down to physical touch, and I do see a lot of married people really struggle in this area, because if you are married to a person that is just not physical touch, there's a lot of stuff that goes into, like, physical boundaries. Has your spouse been abused? Things that factor into that it's like you might have been verbally abused, so it's hard for you to give a compliment, but you can learn to do that. If you have some type of issue with physical touch that's rooted in trauma, it's a little bit more touchy. It's a little bit more, I said touchy, that's funny.
Touche.
It's a little bit harder to overcome. It's not impossible by any means whatsoever, because you need to do that in order to heal for yourself anyway. But there's, we talked about it. If you're single, it's not like you can just run up and be like, touch me, so you have to be creative in the ways that you're going to get your 8 to 10 touches times 3 if you're a physical touch person. And
Yeah, I think it's one of the more difficult parts of, like, if you go through a breakup or something, and you don't have kids or anything, I think it's one of the harder aspects to lose, because I am very touchy. It's not my primary, but it is one of mine, and
yes,
you do feel the loss of that.
Yeah. And so, just thinking, let this blow your mind again. Research has shown that it takes 8 to 10 meaningful touches a day to maintain. And hear me, I'm saying maintain. I'm not saying to blow you out of the water. I'm saying to maintain, not to fill your tank to maximum capacity where you're just swimming in, this, I'm just doing amazing. That's to maintain physical and emotional health. Touch is very important. They do so many studies, even psychological studies, about the absence of a mother's touch on an infant, on a baby, and how it's easy to get failure to thrive by neglect or absence of that physical contact. This is, like I said, it's serious.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead, so I'll wait. Well, I mean, I'm sure you're going to touch on this, but if you are a physical touch, especially like as a kid or in a relationship, like, you can feel very rejected.
Yes.
It's very easy to feel rejected with physical touch if your partner isn't.
It is.
Or if they're just not in the mood and you're feeling like, oh, I need some cuddles or hugs. Like, I think even reading that 8 times a day, I can just see couples going, oh gosh, I don't hug my spouse 8 times a day.
If you're listening to this and your spouse just comes up and says, "There, honey, honey, honey," you'll know what they're doing. They read this statistic.
Right. 8 times a day.
Yes. But like we're saying, it's so important, but yet at the same time, it's so confusing. Like, love languages at work. We don't want to create, like we said last time, we don't want to create an HR problem for anybody. So you have to learn, with compliments. I guess you could get creepy with compliments too.
100%.
Now that I think about that. But it's physical touch is the easiest one. You know what I mean? Say you go into the office and you just have somebody that's, that's touchy. I talk with my hand. If my hands are behind my back, I cannot talk. And so, it would be easy to overtouch somebody that's like, don't touch me. Like, you can that's where you got to have to learn how to read the room. And we'll talk about that later too, if you're physical touch.
Okay. Don't
be touching everybody. You gotta understand proper boundaries. because sometimes when we get so starved for our love language, we think we have a right to have it fulfilled, and not really at work, but more so in the in romantic relationships. Can one spouse really pressure another spouse? It's one thing to say, I want you to touch me all the time, and then it's another thing to say, like, hey, I want you to compliment me more. It can have a different connotation, and it can have a different ring. There can be more, unfortunately, I think with so much abuse in our society today, it can have a very, very different impact when you're like, look, I need you to touch me.
Yeah. Even for me, when someone gets emotional talking to me, I mean, my first reaction is to want to touch them. Now, I know enough to know when and, things like that.
And
but
to ask
yes.
for permission. May I touch you?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's my first initial. I just want to put my hand on them somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know, something about that human connection.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that could be even traumatizing for someone.
It can. If they have abuse issues,
right.
and you, especially if they're triggered and you touch somebody,
right.
like it causes some impact there. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but still, you need 8 to 10 meaningful touches.
There's some people cringing like,
safe.
I don't people touching me 8 times a day.
I know. 'Cause they're like, ew, that's wrong. That's crazy, ladies. That's wrong. Some wrong research.
Yeah.
Touch, if you think about it, touch signals safety and trust. There has to be that around in order to receive a touch. Like there has to be like, okay, a touch cannot make somebody feel safe. Unsafe. And a touch, there is a level of degree that to allow somebody to touch you. So I just want to point that out, because kind of what we've been talking about, it's so important to respect people's boundaries if you're a touch person, but also to understand that if your significant other, if your husband, your wife is a touch person, this is a way that you can create safety and touch. Think about this. Like if you're interacting with a small child, right? And they're scared. What is one of the first things you do? You pick them up, you hug them, you touch them. It is our physical touch conveys that safety. Like, hey, I'm here. You're safe. You can trust me. So important. Again, we dipped into this a little bit. Understand that people who have physical touch as their primary language, they're strongly impacted by physical and sexual abuse, more so than if that's not your primary language. Think about it. If the way that you receive love, you've been hurt by that, then it's double hurt, because it's a source of love for you, and it is for everybody, but more so if that's your primary language, it's a source of love for you, but it can be very harmful and hurtful.
Yeah, and it cuts deep, especially if that's a primary.
Yeah.
I mean, it hurts anybody, but that experiences that. But if it's a primary, man, the wound is like, and that's what's interesting too about healing our wounds. So a lot what we
so important.
Work on and teach here. Is you might think that this isn't even a primary love language, but you may just have a wound in that area.
That's right. And people shut down in these areas. If you've been beaten, you don't want people touching you.
Right.
If you've been sexually abused, you'll go one way or the other. You'll over crave touch, or you'll under crave it. And that's a good point, because we will not know what your primary language is. Even just, we're not talking about it this week, but words of affirmation. If you've been verbally abused, you might crave words and approval and all that, but you can't ask for what you need because you have so many wounds in those areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why with love languages, it opens a door to your heart, but there's so many ways we have to heal to be able to receive, because somebody can be giving you physical touch, but it just be triggering to you. Somebody can give you quality time, but it triggers you. Somebody can give you words of affirmation and it triggers you. Somebody could have, a love language of gifts, but that's how their parents just bought them off.
Right.
So they're like, I don't need that. I don't want that. And when really they're like, I love gifts. So
yeah,
think about those things. Another thing to think about is people with physical contact, people with touch, they want close contact all the time. Think of it like
Yes.
like little monkeys, like little spider monkey, just like attached to you all the time. They like to be in close proximity. And I think of little kids. You can tell the physical touch kids at the grocery store. They're like hanging on to mom, hanging on to this, hanging on to the leg. They're just very demonstrative with their love. And what's sad is if you can see people kind of get beat down
Yes.
over the course of their lifetime
Yes.
and become, gosh, and even today, like in today's climate with sexual harassment and all that kind of stuff, we just had COVID, like how much physical touch has become an issue in our society today. And if you have that, if you want close contact with people, I know this, I shouldn't even mention this, but I will, because, people begin to get, people will just long to get what they need. And I hate to even bring this up, but I'm totally going to go here.
Okay.
During COVID and after COVID, cuddle parties became a thing. Do you remember
That's
that?
right.
I remember us reading
Yes,
some articles
I do.
on that.
I do remember that. You could like go somewhere and pay to have someone cuddle you.
Yeah. Well, that is birthed, and hear me, it's a dysfunctional way, but it is birthed out. I should never bring this up because people are going to come for us.
Yes.
But that's how much, like a lot of things that happen in our society today, that we look at and we put down. And but what if you, like, because I was thinking about the cuddle parties. Okay, who would go to the cuddle parties and stuff like that? If you were physically abused as a child, or if you have a wound in that area, but you just need to be touched, but you don't trust anybody close to you. It's weird how we will trust strangers. You see it, Jerry Springer, like, exploitive shows like that. What do? I can't tell anybody my business, but I can go on Jerry Springer and share it with the world. Because
Right.
why? Because it's weird how we have this inability to share with the people closest to us, but a crowd feels safe. And so a lot of that begins to come into things. We have a huge problem with sex trafficking, and I'm not saying that this is related to physical touch, but it gets started somewhere. If you've been abused and your natural need to be physically touched becomes, if you're abused and it becomes distorted, then it really, hurtful things happen.
Yeah.
And they manifest in very, very broken ways. Prostitution. Why is prostitution an issue? Do you know that most of prostitution is not a sexual thing?
Right.
A lot of, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I'm saying that a lot of people who are hurt in that area, who don't know how to have relationships, have broken relationships, and they want to be touched, guess where they go? And so when we're talking about how, like, our love languages and abuse intersects, it'll break your heart, and a lot of things like us as, I think, Christians look down on. We begin to look down on things like that.
Yeah.
And it's all birthed from somewhere. Again, I'm talking about people want close contact. It's really cute when you're a kid, but what do you do when you're older and you're not in a healed relationship? And it's sad. I think of a woman in an abusive relationship, right? What does she do? If she has physical touch as her love language, then it gets very distorted. And so it's sad. Abuse is sad.
It is.
Now, here are just some ideas for romantic touch that I would say is non-sexual, but it is romantic. Snuggle. Hold hands while you're talking. Dance with your partner. Greet your partner with a kiss. Touch knees when you're sitting under the table. Play footsies under the table. Come up and hug from behind. And I always think this is real important. While you're driving or while you're passing, just reach out and touch your partner. Like it's a non-sexual thing. Just reach out and just like if you're passing somebody, hey, how are you? We can do it you can do it in a platonic way, but you can also do it in a romantic way also. Some single life touch, and I'll let her talk some more about this too. So we were reading. Look at that one.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
I was thinking about that. But when you're single life, what are some touches that are good for you? A way for you to collect touches. Pets.
Yeah.
Pets. And Rocco and Isabella are not here right now,
Yeah.
but pets and being able to pet and to have something to cuddle. You getting your nails done. Haircuts.
Yes.
We talked about that.
Yep.
Where like if you shampoo somebody's hair, I think you really could tell.
Yeah, I
somebody
can.
who's like, yes.
Yeah, I
This
can.
feels-
I can tell when they, even people who honestly are, I naturally are not physical touch people.
It's an acceptable way
I have
to be touched.
I have access to like just touch their shoulder or some they'll hug me or things like that, and it's because it breaks that barrier. You know? So yeah, definitely haircuts is a way to get physical touch when
Yeah.
you're single.
Weighted blankets. It's like a little hug.
I love my weighted blanket. I love it. I sleep under it every night.
Think about it. If you are on the couch and you're watching a show or you're reading, put something tight around you in the way that, like, I love weighted blankets because it does. It's like a hug.
Yep.
You don't have to get it so heavy that it weighs you down, but doesn't it feel like a
I
hug?
don't know. I'm thinking about getting a heavier one.
I like mine. I've got one. I'm like, God, mine is heavy.
I love it. It's awesome. Yeah, it does. It's very comforting, and it does feel like snug and secure.
It gets your touch sensors.
It does. And people are like, oh my gosh, I'd be so hot. I'm like, I have a sheet and a weighted blanket and a blanket. I just turn the air up.
That's right. Hug friends. A lot of times you can tell when you have a friend that's very physically affectionate, and there's nothing wrong with that. Hug a friend. Massages are a way to get touch, and so that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my niece, not too long ago, we were watching TV or we were all hanging out at my brother's house, and she's like, KK, you want to cuddle? It's like she was just needing some affection.
I
So she came and
know.
sat next to me on the
Kids
couch.
are
and Put her
bold.
arm around her, and we sat there and watched TV. She was happy as a clam.
Yep.
Yeah.
My boys used to like to have their heads scratched
Yeah.
when we were watching TV or something. They would
Yeah.
like scratch my head, scratch my hair, rub my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Kids are so neat and so beautiful in the way that they ask for their needs, and I love it.
Yeah.
Kids can be very direct. It's precious. One of the things do not list for touch people, physical abuse. Always be aware that the impact of abuse on people. Even some people will play around and they'll bend somebody's fingers back. They'll do pinches, tickles, things like that. Always be aware of that could potentially, is it a good touch for that person or a bad touch for that person? There's if you ask people, do you like to be, this is crazy, but on our physical abuse profiles, one of those did you receive unwanted tickles? Some people love tickles, and some people, it hurts them to be tickled. Some people are just extra sensitive to touch, and when you tickle them, it's not
enjoyable.
It's not. So you want to be able to understand with romantic, with romantic relationships, what is your partner's preferences? What are not their preferences? Neglect. If you just never, just like as if you never talk to a child, never talk to your partner, That would be neglect. You also can neglect physically if you just never touch. If your partner keeps asking to be touched, asking for physical contact, hey, come sit by me on the couch, and you just are absent in that way, that really degrades the relationship. Rejection when they initiate physical contact. If you know your spouse, you know your partner is physical touch, don't try your best not to recoil. I'm saying you don't have to just be their little touch monkey or anything like that, but just be aware. And another one I'd say, because it gets sexual and non-sexual touch gets so confused sometimes, let's not make fun of them for their needs.
Oh yeah.
Don't make oh my gosh, you just have to touch something or touch me all the time. You're always trying to touch me. Don't shame them and don't make fun of them for that. Caution, if you are touch, if that is your primary language, I'm going to say this to you. Watch people's bubble space. Watch their personal space. Just because if you have a small personal space, it doesn't mean everybody does. So you need to learn how to read the room and read people's personal space. And I'll say this as a caveat too. Don't be clingy or whiny about physical touch. I think sometimes it's easy to slip into that. I have a right to touch or right to be touched, and that's not really where you want to go with that. You want to have a healthy relationship and everybody's needs met. So if you get touch me, you never touch me, or sex, or that is going to degrade the relationship. And if you're constantly, I'm physical touch, I'm physical. I hear that a lot in counseling, that it hits in a hard way sometimes. So just be aware of that. Now, okay, when we're in counseling, one of the things that I look for is what I'd call critical level. This means that if a married couple comes in or a couple comes in and we're talking to them, one of the things I'll look for is, okay, where I'll look, how critical are we at this moment? And a critical level with a person who loves touch is they don't want to touch from you. If you have a spouse, if you have somebody and they just no longer want to touch from you, we got a big problem.
Yeah.
And that can come from time, a long time of neglect. It can come from they're just wounded. It can come from a lot of different sources, motivational sources for their not wanting touch. But if you were married to a physical touch person and they no longer want your touch, you are in critical mode.
Yeah.
Critical, alarm. Man, we're not moving very fast through these. Let's go. Acts of service. I'm going to go this. Okay, acts of service. Man, acts of service is, I'll say, a tricky one too. Not because, it's completely valid, right?
Absolutely.
100% valid. But I will say it's also one of the, I think touch can be triggering to people that's not their primary language. And I think acts of service can be triggering if that's not somebody's primary language. Because the thing about acts of service is the acts of service person feels very loved through you doing things for them for acts of service. But one of the caveats I would say is if your partner is acts of service and that's your lowest one, then you're going to feel like a slave. You're going to feel like, my gosh, I can't do enough for this person. Man, I just got them did this. And now what do you want now? And it's hard, I think, on both parties.
Yeah.
In the way that I think it's important to understand the motivation. And if you can look wow, if my partner's acts of service, that's just how they feel love and they receive love. And that's just how they're wired. And so it's important to always, with any of our love languages, keep our heart posture right with that. Because we can get very resentful, or we can either way. You can get resentful if you're acts of service and feel like your spouse isn't serving you enough, or it could be the other way and you're like, my gosh, what do I have to do to make this person okay? And so I just kind of want you to think about that as we talk and we go into this. When an acts of service person, when they enter a room, they can't help it in the way that they just see the things that are undone. They look for things that okay, what needs to be done? This needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. So what begins to happen is they feel very overwhelmed a large majority of the time. And I don't know about you, but when I feel overwhelmed, I'm a little bit cranky.
Yes, definitely.
And so I think that a lot of times acts of service people get a bad rap in the way that they can be very, very misread if you don't understand where they're coming from. And depending upon, like, say, a mom, let's just pick a mom. A mom comes home and she's just got off of work and her, nobody's started dinner. Kids were supposed to start dinner. Everything's a mess. The husband got home before and he's not working on homework. So I think in that case, she comes in and all she can concentrate on in that moment is everything is undone and there's so much to do. And, acts of service people, it's the same issue that comes when we talk about the DISC and we talk about task-minded people and relational-minded people. Acts of service is very task-driven. And so when something is task-driven, a lot of times the human element of relationship goes out the window. And that can make it very hard on a person who is very relational. Because coming home and seeing like, this isn't done. And it's like, God, they hadn't seen me all day long. Don't they just want to hug me? Don't they just want to love me? Don't they just want to spend time with me? But the acts of service person can't relax until the tasks are done. They can't relax until all the acts are done. Mm-hmm. They're the people that there's no dirty dishes in the sink at any time. And just, can you think of a person that in your life that's acts of service?
Yeah, I can think of a few, actually.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you see, and because you're a very relational person.
Yes.
You're a very relationship person. And we usually are. We're either task or relationship. And sometimes we can be split. But when somebody is very task oriented with you, how does that feel to you?
I don't know. I don't know that I could speak to how it would feel for them to be very I guess it can feel cold.
Okay.
Yeah, if they get too tasked.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because it really will matter. Like if if a task person is with an acts of service person, they're going to get it. They're going to be like, oh, okay, we just got to get stuff done. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be easier because, and to back up, before we, in our wrap up of love languages, we're going to kind of make a matrix and kind of talk about which love languages are harder on the others and by personality. And I think that's really important because, like we're saying, half the world is task and half the world is relationship. You can get a mix. Yeah. But you're very relational. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is feeling overwhelmed, and hear me, like being acts of service, they're fabulous people. But if they start to feel overwhelmed, under pressure, under stress, then they can be a little colder. Mm-hmm. They can be like, let's get this done. Yeah. And the relationship kind of moves to the side. Yeah. And so I do think that's hard.
Well, and they do so much for they're always doing something.
Always.
And they do so much for other people and they take on so much. Mm-hmm. And so and then they can kind of like have a list in their head, mm-hmm. from my experience. Yeah. And they know how the task is laid out. Yeah. And so for me, I can do task, but for me, tasks are not that way. I have like a do, and I have to, and so if I come into a situation, mm-hmm. I think it can be overwhelming to a person who is that way. Yes. Who their love language is service, because I think it's like, they've got it all laid out in their head how it's going to go.
How it's supposed to go.
And I'm coming in and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Da, 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 da. And I'm chatty and they're like, and they can be chatty too, but they're working in the back of their head.
Yes.
So,
and like I said, we it's all in context of several things about people, never to pigeonhole people. But if you have a love language, you have an apology language, you have a way that you make choices, you have a personality, kind of not to pigeonhole you, but just to kind of help you understand. So a lot of times if your love language is acts of service, it depends on your personality about how that's going to come through.
100%. Yes, because it can look so different.
Yeah. And I would say as far as like acts of service isn't really high on mine. It's more like midline to lower. But at the same time, with my personality, I'm half task, half people.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So I think my tasks, I can, when I get into task mode, then I leave people mode, and mine is kind of either or. I'm either in task mode or I'm in people mode, and it looks real different.
Yeah.
If you get people Angie, it's fun. If you get task Angie,
It's work.
we are working.
Yeah.
And so if my acts of service were a little bit higher on there, that might be a little rougher.
Yeah, I know. It would
like
be
I said,
interesting.
based on personality.
Yeah, mine last
Yeah.
acts of service, like very last. So I always am amazed at acts of service people.
They
do
make the world go
so
round. They
much.
really do.
They do, and they don't mind 90% of it. You know,
But
It's-
there's just some things that you have to be careful of.
Yep.
They have to be careful of, and you have to be careful of. They have to be careful when they get overwhelmed. And you also, if your partner's acts of service, if you see them get overwhelmed, get up and help.
Yes,
Just do it. Pitch in, because it's easier for everybody to pitch in and it gets done faster. But also you have to understand there's that balance of if there's an acts of service person and they're under stress and they're kind of out of control and they're stress cleaning and stress service acting, like you know, like you don't have to drink that Kool-Aid. Like you might be able to say, hey, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
But it's a balancing act with all of them. But I'll say if you have an acts of service person, help is so important.
yes,
Like, we were talking about, they do so much, and gosh, they are just givers in the kingdom. But help is important, and ask them. You made an important distinguishing remark. Ask them what's helpful.
yes.
Because you might come and help, but that does not make it helpful.
It makes it hip.
And help is not the same as help.
No.
It's a missing.
That's
it's
right.
missing something.
That's right. The L, the
That's
love.
It is missing.
Yeah.
And so definitely ask for what's helpful. And I would also say one of the things that I notice with acts of service people is don't ask too many questions. Like you want to ask what's helpful, but you want to get your head bit off. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just ask.
Yeah.
If you're in, and I think everybody's that way. If you're knee deep in a task and somebody just keeps coming and asking you a million questions, it is not an enjoyable experience for anybody.
No.
For nobody. Nobody. Let's see. Okay. Caution. This is some cautions if you are acts of service. Okay. Before I get into that, let me see how many more I have of those. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more, and probably, like I said, on touch and acts of service, I have a little bit more caution with those, not because they're any less, they are every love language is a huge blessing gift, but just because there can be things that arise. Like I said, for acts of service, people can begin to feel like all we're doing is working, all we're doing is tasks.
That's true.
So you, as either way, understand that if your partner is an acts of service person, you're just going to have to step up a little bit, and you're going to have to help them out. And that means everything in the world to them, because for one, they would do it for you. And they don't really understand when somebody doesn't reciprocate that back, because again, if you love me, I love you, so I'm going to do this for you, and if you love me, you'll do this for me. And I think sometimes, again, that can be misunderstood and come off like an exchange, but sometimes it's just you just do it. My youngest son, I'll say he's very acts of service, and it's so cute. Like, he will, if he asks for help, I'm doing it, because he very rarely will ask for help. But I remember, like, when he was growing up, and one of his tasks were to feed the dogs, and to feed, Mom, I'm running late for school, could you please feed the dogs for me? Man, you don't tell an acts of service person no. Like,
That's true.
If they, like, there's a dysfunctional part of it, but there's also a part of it where if they're asking for help, they really need it. You know, not that it's that way all the time,
Right.
but it's pretty important. And when they ask for help to pitch in, it really hurts them and wounds them when your answer is no to that. I'm not saying that there can't ever be times that you just need to set a boundary or you need to say no to something. But if the people that you love around you are acts of service, try to say yes
Yeah.
to cries for help. Yeah.
Because they don't ask very often, typically.
No, my son, he would get up, and my youngest, he would get up and he would make his breakfast, and he played sports and stuff. So he was, making his lunch, making his breakfast, and really like doing a lot for himself. And so when he asked for help, yes, the answer is yes. But like I said, just for friends, for things like that, it's so important.
Boy, and let me tell you, if you're going to do something for an acts of service person, you better do it right.
Yes.
The way they would do it.
Yes.
Because if you don't, it's almost like irritating to them, because
Yeah.
it's like, I might as well have just done it myself, because I have to come back and do it anyway.
And a lot of that, I would say, is determined also by their secondary gifting. Like, if you have a quality person, if that he acts of service and quality is important.
Absolutely.
And remember, there's always strengths and weaknesses to all of these love languages, but it's important for you to know the people that are around you so that you can really, really, really be able to understand their motivation. Like I said, acts of service, if they ask for help, like they don't like to ask for help a lot.
Right.
If they have to ask for help, it almost doesn't count. You know, like they want you initially. The best case would be if they're asking for help, they really need it.
Yeah.
But the best case is they don't have to ask for help, is that you pitch in.
Yep.
Very, 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 very important. I just love this series, don't you?
I do.
Like, on love
I love
languages.
it. It's great.
Because the better that we can love and we can understand each other, it's so important. It's so easy to hurt each other's feelings if we don't understand our love languages. But that's also okay, because we will do the apology languages after this
Yay.
series. So this is a caution that I would say for people who are acts of service. If you're acts of service, you might want to watch Being Critical. Like, I would say acts of service people have a special ability to look and to see things that aren't done. And not everybody has that. So it's easy for the acts of service person to think, well, everybody sees this. Everybody did, just nobody's doing it. And that's not always the case. Sometimes people just see things that are undone. Don't be a slave driver. Like, not everybody has the same as you. Also, my third one on this is learn to chill. Just chill. Like, it's everything. Like, there's a balance. Usually if there's an acts of service, there's somebody else that has a different love language, and just learn how to be okay with not everything done. But that's hard. I mean, it's hard on them.
Yes.
So, and the way that you can do that, Siri is totally
Getting everything you say.
I know. Siri, we're not talking to you.
Okay.
My phone picked up. Look.
Mine says Siri was.
That's funny. I love it.
Your Siri likes my voice. I'm your Siri. Okay. Do not. This is what I would say. If you love your acts of service person, don't do any of these things. Making more work for them. Don't make more work for them. Pick up after yourself. Don't make more work. When you're asking for help, like when you want to do something to be helpful, ask, what could I do? But don't ask too many questions. For acts of service people, this one seems a little like almost like which one of these things is not like the other. But we see this consistently with acts of service people, broken commitments. If you tell an acts of service person something that you're going to do something, do it, because it is very it hurts the relationship if you don't. Not being willing to help out. You just have to, if this is your least, like your least is acts of service, you were saying.
Yes.
If your least of if you're around of an acts of service person, maybe that'll be your guy's language.
God help him and me.
But we're motivated by love. So you would have to get to a point where you would say, okay, I just got to step up in the help area, in the acts of service in this department. You just have to be willing to help out. Another thing that I would say, if your partner, if your friend, anybody you're close to is acts of service, whatever you do, don't act like you're burdened while you're helping.
Yes, that is true.
That is very offensive to them. And I totally get why it wouldn't be, because of what their love language is. Critical level, again, when people come in, we assess what level they're at. If the acts of service person has gotten to where they withhold acts of service or they quit asking for help, we are at critical level. We're at like whoop 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 whoop. What's it? Stage 5. I think it's stage 5. That's
You're thinking of the stage 5 clinger.
This is a stage 5 neglect.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's true.
So when you're thinking about those things, when you're thinking about love languages, I really want you to understand, you have got to understand what yours are, and you've got to understand the people's around you, because in order to begin to fill love tanks, there's a lot of things that go into filling love tanks, but love language is one of them. If I'm an acts of service and I feel like nobody's helping me, that hurts. Like that drains their love tank extremely quickly. So think about those things. And another thing before we go, what I wanted to bring up is an interesting note to me is how our love languages impacts our careers.
Yeah, I can see that.
Think about it. If physical touch was last to you, if physical touch was like, ooh, you
wouldn't become a massage therapist.
You wouldn't. Acts of service. A lot of times those are our administrators, our doers, our people that
Service
get
people.
stuff done. Yes, very, very important. So it's interesting. If your number one is quality time, I'd say my number one is quality time. I spend a lot of time with people, right? And so does it impact your career? Yeah. So what I want you to think about additionally when we're going through this is think about your love life, think about your friendship life, but think about what you do for a living. And is that at odds with what comes natural to you? Like, and there's nothing wrong. Like some people just have careers. They're like, it was just a career. But it can be, if you are words of affirmation and you're a stock market person, like, and everybody's on the floor yelling, sell, blah, 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 like if you're in a harsh environment, understand that work could be more stressful than it might need to be for you. If you're a quality time person and you're working
at
home during COVID all by yourself, you were suffering, as well as who suffered the most during COVID? Quality time, unless you're with you
live with your people
or physical touch. Like single people got the shaft on
a lot of
during
it.
COVID.
A lot of that.
If you didn't live with family, if you didn't
have a roommate
there were people that kind of coupled up, like people who were dating. We saw several of these cases. They would be like, hey, let's quarantine together. Let's quarantine, or friends quarantining together, which was good during that time. Yeah. So I've enjoyed talking about love
Yeah,
languages.
it's
I
fun.
hope you've enjoyed listening. Next week, which one is it? It's gifts and quality time is what we're going to highlight next week, because if your relationships go easier, they go smoother, like butter.
Yeah.
If we can understand more about each other. Is there anything you'd like to add to what we've talked about today?
Not that I can think of. Acts of service is just, it's definitely one that you have to like pay attention to how your partner, pay attention to what they do, and then try to just do that.
Copy, replicate
Yes.
it.
Because if you have to ask too many questions, if you have to ask, what do you need me to do? Just look
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
What do you need me to do? Just look around. There's always something that can be done to do, and they probably have it on their list. And one thing I have noticed about them is it's hard for them to allow people to do things for them.
Yes. That's
And
why you really have to get
yeah.
ahead of that.
And if they have any wounding in that area, it's even harder to do something for them. And then with, I would say that would be kind of a difficult one for a single person to get fulfilled too.
Yeah.
Other than but your friends can do things for you, acts of service and things like that. But I don't know. I guess I don't really feel like I often need anything along those lines, but it's really low on my list. So
Yes.
maybe that's why I feel
But
that way.
also remember, like, even being low on your list, there's still a need
Yes.
there. Like if something comes up that you need an act of service for, then
It's huge.
It comes really, really, really
And it means a
huge.
lot because I don't expect it ever.
Yeah.
And so it means a lot for somebody to do something like that.
Yeah. I
So.
think a great way, we'll pray in a minute, but a great way to end is, why don't we, since Valentine's Day is next week,
Yeah.
why don't we talk about each of the love, let's do that. Let's, for touch, what would be a good Valentine's gift? We're going to do you a solid, men. We're going to talk about that. And women too. Don't forget, I was talking to somebody today. I was counseling with somebody, and it was a man, and I said, well, what are you getting for Valentine's? And he's like, Valentine's is like, no, like that's just for women. I'm like, dude, no
way.
Valentine's love is for everybody.
That's right.
So let's think of, okay, for physical touch, what would be a great gift for if that's your person's love language?
I would say like a coupon booklet of
That's
like
good.
a foot rub, a back rub.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know, 10 minutes of holding hands if you don't do that, or things
Couples
like that.
massage.
Yes.
Something like that. If your physical touch, something that would maybe like a coupon for snuggling.
Yeah.
During
10-minute snuggle
I
or
know. Just anything that would involve that close, and because that's really important. And then let's say acts of service. What would be a good gift for acts of service? Ooh, I always hear this one a lot. This one's funny. A car wash membership. Like get them
yeah.
a gift certificate for an act of service, because they're going to do it. So get them something for them not to have to do it.
yeah.
So
I would say cooking dinner and doing the cleanup and like doing the grocery shopping, like doing the whole meal.
yes.
Or even offering that for like a week, if your partner is the primary
Yes.
person to cook and clean, or
Absolutely.
having somebody come in and clean the house.
That would be beautiful.
Wouldn't that be
I don't
great?
know any. You don't have to be acts of service for that to be beautiful. And I would say too, like if for the men, give your woman handyman coupons. That's a way to acts of service woman's heart. We like it, and we're not. That's not even super high.
Yeah.
But that would be fabulous.
Or if you have something around the house that needs to be fixed that he's going to get to and he hasn't, like call and have somebody come do it if he's okay with it.
That would be awesome. Okay, and another one is gifts. What would be an idea to give a gift for a gift person? Remember, a gift person is almost always filtered through their secondary and tertiary languages. So you want to kind of think about that. But the whole point of a gift, I would say, is that you're thinking of that person, and that's the key thing. What would show that you're thinking of your person, and really be like, give a thoughtful
I would
gift.
say something personalized, like a picture from your first date in a new frame, and
Says the words of affirmation. Quality time.
Well, I'm just saying.
I know. But it's cute because we can't help but
Filter it through that.
filter it through our things.
A nice piece of jewelry too, but I'm like, but there has to be some personalization behind it. I can't help it.
I know.
But I think a gifts person would just like a nice quality gift.
Yes.
But
Says the quality time.
I know.
Isn't it funny? It's
I
always
know, I
funny to
can't
me
help
'cause
it.
the ones that naturally come to my mind are filtered through mine, and it's funny to hear you say that because I can hear it.
Yeah.
And
I think like a necklace if they have kids with like the birthstones or
Yes.
I don't know. And for a man though, I'm not sure.
Well, and that's why I say if their primary language is gifts, then think about it like what shows you were thinking of that person. I think is the biggest guider of that. That's why it's hard for us we can give you ones, but you have to make it special to and personal to your person. Whatever it is, don't just run out and just do it. Just like make it personal, right? To them. Okay, the next one is quality time. We're both quality time, so this is we could give you ideas for days and days on this.
100%. But it would be filtered through our other stuff.
That's
like,
true.
I'm like a weekend away. Just the two of you.
And it is with quality time. It's all about uninterrupted, scheduled, set aside special time. This isn't like, we normally have lunch every day, so let's just squeeze in. We're going to call that special. No, that's not special quality time. Things that I would say are out of the ordinary,
Yeah.
Even
for like for your guy, if his is quality time, axe throwing, doing an activity while you're hanging out and talking. I don't know. I would enjoy that.
We did
stuff
my
like
family
that.
Went axe throwing.
Oh yeah.
We went axe throwing for Christmas.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Or bowling, or doing an activity is fun too.
But I would say for quality time, sitting down face to face, having even I'd say going to a coffee shop.
Yes.
And just sitting for hours and talking and just
a new coffee shop that you've never been to before. It's
okay,
so
hold
cool.
on. We could, I need to get
I
Christina.
love coffee shops.
But the neat thing about a coffee shop is, what are you doing? There's nothing else to focus on. Like you focus on each other and you talk to each other. Going out to dinner, I would say for a quality time person, they don't mind doing movies every once in a while, but you're not talking, you're not interacting. Again, with quality time, I think it's something unique, something quality, something special, something thought out.
Yeah, if you're going to go to dinner, not a super busy, crazy restaurant, getting a table that's a little more private, things like that would be important.
Yeah. And then what's after that? The only one we have left is
Words of affirmation. That's the easiest one.
Says that's her number one. Words of affirmation. And that can just really look so different. Like I always am a big fan of, like, for words of affirmation people, writing a letter.
Yes.
And,
huge. Number one.
Yeah.
Every time.
100
old.
things I love about you.
Never gets old.
Like, oh my 100 things I love about you. I mean, things like that, cards, even just recording a video and sending it to them spontaneously, saying something to them, speaking a voice memo or something like that. Words of affirmation, get a meaningful poem and read it to them and send it to them. And y'all are easy. That's probably, I think words of affirmation are the easiest.
Yeah, I know this is, for some people, I think this is going to be very taboo, but a social media post to them.
Ooh.
I mean, I know
that's true.
That's very taboo for people. It's like, why do you have to display it? But I think for words of affirmation, it's like I'm telling people how much I love
publicly.
You. And
Yeah, that's true.
I think that would mean something to them.
That is very true. We'll have to note, Sonia, we need to write a thank you post to Christina for all that she does. For the
Actually,
ministry.
that's not something that I've ever thought about before.
But no, that's perfect.
I mean, I could see that being meaningful to someone.
It is. It is.
Do not. Do not.
I'm just we gotta have fun with what we do.
I know.
So that was just like a last minute spontaneous
Yeah.
thing. Sorry to keep y'all a little bit extra longer on the Zoom, but now you know what to get your Valentine for.
That's right.
Valentine's Day. We gave you a lot of ideas. If you really can't come up with anything, just text us.
Yeah.
We'll help you.
We'll help you out.
help you. And so let's pray. Dear Lord, I just thank you for this time that we have together during the live. I thank you, Lord, that you just are working in everybody's heart, giving them a heart for your body. Lord, I just thank you that we would begin to open our eyes and see the ways in which people want to be loved. And we just become the best lovers in the way we just pour out everything, Jesus, that you would have us pour out. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Happy Valentine's soon, next week. That's fun.
Yeah.